I suppose I got into songwriting reasonably early. So I would tend to bring songs to the worship band and say, what do we think about this? And at the time I wasn't too used to worship writing, so probably a few of the songs I was writing did have a few interesting chords in them that I wasn't necessarily thinking as congregationally as maybe I do now. So bringing them to sort of guys in the band were like, wow, that's a chord I haven't seen maybe before, and they showed me how to play it properly, and then I'd play it, and they would be so encouraging. I've been really fortunate in that respect to have loads of people around who have just continually said, yeah, let's try this, let's do this, taking what I'm bringing to the party and you're learning from them. And I think that's the way it works best, really, just definitely getting with other people, getting them around you, getting their input, hearing what they've got to say from people who've got so much more experience.
Some people in our church who were Christians but working in the mainstream, in the pop sort of world, and they had, you know, a few successful recordings. So they were always kind of keeping an eye on my development. And there were one or two people who had some techniques as well that I enjoyed, like somebody who was into open tuning, who used to play around at when we had our sort of informal worship times. And I always was amazed that he used open tuning. So those kind of things rubbed off on me, and I started to develop those. And I think encouragement is such a big thing when it comes to any endeavour that we do, especially in the creative world, because we always think what we do is awful and doesn't sound half as good as somebody else. But somebody sidling up and saying, yeah, that's really good, develop that, you know. Have you thought about not playing that chord, but playing this one instead? It all sparks you off and gets you going in fresh directions.
When I was starting out with guitar, yeah, I'd kind of ask my friends, how do you play this chord? You know, like some worship leaders in my old church, just to say, how do you play that chord? There was a really cool kind of way you did that. And so, you know, I'd ask some of my friends who were worship leaders just how they would sort of play it, and they'd show me how to do certain sort of, I call it tricks of the trade, really, of different voicings and stuff. So yeah, a little bit, they were very helpful.
To the credit of the church I was going to, they were very encouraging. I think from a musical point of view, they thought we were making this the most awful racket imaginable, and we probably were. But because we were keen and young, and we were trying to serve God through our music, they were very encouraging.
I think all of us as musicians start by listening to music that moves us and going, oh, maybe one day I could play it. But we don't usually have direct access to those musicians. So I would say most of my encouragement for more experienced musicians was not their direct input into my life. It was me putting on headphones and analyzing what they did and then trying to play it and then pausing it and trying to play it again. I think one of the best ways to grow as a guitarist and a musician is to really emulate musicians that you really respect. And as you learn to play what they're playing, then you can start individuating and make it in your own. But it's good to start with that idea of emulating something that you really like.
I had a lot of support actually in those early kind of teenage years in my guitar playing. I remember there was one guy in particular in my youth group at church, and he would always get me alongside him to play alongside him whenever he led worship in the youth group. And that was just essential for me, really, just having that kind of mentor figure who would just encourage me at all times and release me as well in my playing.